All right, these are going to be my Week 9 UFL Power Rankings, so let's get started. Start off here at number 8, we're going to have the Memphis Showboats. They're now 1-7, and they lost this week 24-18 versus the Michigan Panthers, so a pretty close game there. Case Cookus was fine in this game, 10-16, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He was pretty solid there, but then he also got injured about halftime, where Josh Love ended up taking over because Troy Williams is already hurt for them as well. So the third quarterback, Josh Love, played the majority of that second half. He actually played for the Michigan Panthers, I believe, in the 2023 USFL. So it's fun to see him get his first action here this season against his former team there in Michigan Panthers. And he, was pretty good, 9-12 for 56 yards and a touchdown of his own. So yeah, he was pretty solid there, and he'll likely get the start here in Week 9. Because I believe Case Cookus is still going to be injured a little bit. So Josh Love's probably going to start in Week 9. But yeah, the receiving game and passing game was pretty good. David Davis had 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. They had a 65-yard touchdown to David Davis on their first play of the game, which is really good there to start off for Memphis. They did not do great for the majority of the rest of that first half. Sage Surratt also had 5 receptions for 55 yards. So their pass game was fine. The rush game was kind of why they lost this game. They only had 40 total rushing yards, and they let up 161 rushing yards. So they got, they let up 4 times as many rushing yards as they had. So not a good recipe for success, there. Number 7 is going to be the Arlington Renegades, who are 1-7 here, and they lost 20-15 versus the San Antonio Brahmas. Louis Perez was solid in this game, 22 of 33, 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sal Cannella was amazing as always, 9 receptions, 87 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Vaughns was good, 6 receptions, 75 yards. But they were getting destroyed here in the first half. They were down 20-3 at halftime. So down 17 points at halftime is not a good look. But their defense was amazing in the second half. Did not let up a single point in the entire second half. They scored 2 touchdowns, made it 15-20 with a minute and 20 left. They scored a touchdown to make it 15-20. Missed their 2-point conversion, which would have made it a 3-point game. Where a field goal then would have tied it into overtime. But yeah, they missed the 2-point conversion. Went for it on the 4th and 15 or whatever, 4th and 12, I think actually. But yeah, whatever. They missed that. So ended up turning it over, I guess, there, and losing the game 20-15. But it was a really good second half effort for them. But overall, their first half, was not very promising at all. But a good finish to that game for Arlington. Number 6 is going to be the Houston Roughnecks, who are 1-7. They played really, really good this week against the Birmingham Stallions. They lost 35-28. It's only a 7-point loss versus the best team in the league. It's probably the best game the Roughnecks have played all season long. Even though they haven't won a game, they won a game which was kind of an ugly battle against the Arlington Renegades. So I think this loss against the Stallions was probably more impressive than their win against the Renegades. So that's why I got to move them up here to number 6, because they probably played their best game. They definitely had their best offensive performance here in this game. Putting up 28 points. Reed Sennett was good in this game, 99 yards, a touchdown and a pick in 1 half, so pretty solid. Nolan Henderson came in the second half after Reed Sennett was injured. He, was solid, 97 yards, a touchdown, 34 rushing yards as well, but he did have 1 lost fumble. So both quarterbacks here were solid. Both had a touchdown and a turnover, so not the best performances there, but I think they're both pretty solid. Mark Thompson was amazing in this game, 54 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Kiki Chisholm had 80 yards. Justin Hall had 73 yards. And they had a chance there at the end of the game to score a touchdown and go into overtime. They were on the Birmingham 24-yard line, on the last play of the game. So definitely within striking distance there to get a legit shot for a touchdown there to tie it up. But, ended up throwing an incompletion, I believe, on that play. So still, very good performance here for Houston. And going into week 9, I believe Nolan Henderson is probably going to be slated to start. So I do believe Reed Sennett is still, going to be out with his injury that he suffered here in this game. Number 5 is going to be the DC Defenders, who are 3-5 here. this was supposed to be their best chance to kind of win. If they would have won this game, they got to keep their playoff hopes alive. So with losing it, they're now eliminated from the playoffs. They played an injured, Battlehawks team. Battlehawks were without AJ McCarron, without Jaquor Pearson, without Marcel Aitman. And the defenders still lost to them 26-21. Not a bad performance for the offense. 21 points is fine, but you let a backup quarterback with two of his top weapons, out this week. You let them still put up 26 points. Not a good look for the DC defenders. So they're definitely got to worry about some of that. But their season's effectively over. Already eliminated from the playoffs. So not a whole lot you can do to fix it this season, but definitely something to think about going into next off season. But yeah, Jordan Ta'amu was fine, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have 2 interceptions. There's a little bit of a problem with him. He's pretty turnover prone, or has been for the majority of this year. Ty Scott was good, 69 yards and a touchdown. Alex Ellis had 58 yards and a touchdown. So some good performances from the offense, but overall, 2 interceptions is not a good look, and letting a backup quarterback put up 26 points on you guys, also not a good look. Number 4, here's going to be the Michigan Panthers, who are 6-2. They played pretty good this week. Won 24-18 versus the Memphis Showboats. Pretty good look for them here. Brian Lewerke was solid in this game. He was a lot better this week than he was last week. 6 of 11 for 82 yards and a touchdown. Looked a lot better. Bryce Perkins was also really good in this game as well. 7-9 for 106 yards and a touchdown, as well as 55 rushing yards. The rushing game was amazing in this game. Matthew Colburn had 100 rushing yards. 100 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Devin Gray had 84 yards and a touchdown as well. They had 160 rushing yards compared to, 40 that they allowed. So kind of dominated the ground game on both sides of the ball, which is a good look there for Michigan. The starting quarterbacks, EJ Perry's been out for a while and is probably going to be out the entire postseason. Danny Elling was injured the last couple of weeks, and it's good to see, that they're able to lean on the run game with him out. But going into week 9 here, Danny Elling is supposed to be back. But they have said they're probably still going to be running kind of a dual quarterback system that they've been doing the last couple of weeks. And Danny Etling is likely to take Brian Lewerke's spot, and Bryce Perkins is probably going to be the starter. So they're going to be running with Bryce Perkins and Danny Etling most likely here for week 9, with Bryce Perkins probably getting the starting spot there. Perkins has looked really, really good here in these couple of games that he's played. Not that Brian Lewerke's been bad, but I think, Danny Etling's looked better than Brian Lewerke at least. Number 3 is going to be the San Antonio Brahmas. They're 6-2. They won this week 20-15 versus the Arlington Renegades. Quentin Dormady was fine in this game. He was a lot better. Actually, he was really good in this game. He was a lot better this week than last week. He's been one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks here in the UFL and in the XFL of recent years as well. He had like a 5-touchdown game I think he had a 6-touchdown game in the XFL last season, but he also had a 5-interception game or something. So he was just really inconsistent. Last week he was really bad. This week he came out, firing on all cylinders here. 17-25, 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely amazing performance there. Anthony McFarland probably had one of the top performances of the year as a running back this week. 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cody Latimer had one of his best games, 6 receptions for 116 yards as well. They were up 20-3 at halftime. We're looking really, really good. Like I said earlier, they did, end up not scoring at all for the entire second half. And, we're down, or we're only up 20-15 there at the end of the game. And, had to lean on a defensive stop there on 4th and 12, which they did. So their defense stepped it up there at the end. But their offense, was pretty bad the entire second half, which is a little bit concerning. But they also, Chase Garbers is also activated now. He likely won't be playing in week 9, or at least not a whole lot. He could get some limited action, but he'll likely, not be playing at all in week 9. But he could be playing back for week 10 to kind of give him one warm-up game here heading into the playoffs. But, yeah. That'd be a lot better to see him than Quentin Dormady. Number 2 here is going to be the St. Louis Battlehawks. They won this week 26-21. Like I said earlier, they were without AJ McCarron. They had Manny Wilkins playing. They were without Jaquor Pearson and Marcel Aitman, 2 of their best receivers. So being able to put up 26 points is a really good sign there. Um, Manny Wilkins was fine in this game. 9 of 18 is not great. 126 yards is not great, but he also had 79 rushing yards. He's a lot better of a runner than A.J. McCarron is, so that's kind of a positive there for Manny Wilkins. Rest of the team here was pretty solid. Wayne Gallman was really good, 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Quinterio Cole on defense had eight tackles and an interception, which is really good. Um, this game was really, really close. I mean, basically all the games this week were pretty close, but this one was a back and forth game kind of throughout the entirety. They had a go-ahead touchdown with 2 minutes left by Wayne Gallman, which was really good to see there for St. Louis. And then they forced a turnover on downs for DC with only 55 seconds left. So really good finish to this game for both sides of the ball, which is really, really important for St. Louis. Because one, if they would have lost that game, they would have been on the brink of potentially falling out of the playoff spot. If DC was to get a couple more wins this season and they were to lose out, and with the loss, they probably kind of puts them out of contention for the number 1 seed. But right now, they're still going to be tied there for the number 1 seed with San Antonio. So this was a very, very big week here for St. Louis. Number 1 here is going to be the Birmingham Stallions. They're 8-0 here. Obviously been the best team in the league for basically the entire season here. This week they won 35-28 versus the Houston Roughnecks. Not a great defensive performance in this game. Letting the Roughnecks put up 28 points is never a good sign for your defense. But offensively, they were amazing in this game. Just absolutely amazing. AJ Martinez had 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, but he was still really good. He also had 44 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns there. So 5 total touchdowns for this guy. Only one turnover to 5 touchdowns is a really good ratio there. He's been the best quarterback probably in the league so far. Ricky Person had 74 yards himself. So, yeah, really good performance here for Birmingham on the offensive side of the ball. And defense, not the best, but, you'll live with it because you've been so dominant on offense. You don't really need to be as effective on the defensive side of the ball, at least not until, the playoffs. So going on here into our standings here, XFL Conference, you got Battlehawks at 1, Brahmas at 2, Defenders at 3, and Renegades at 4. Defenders and Renegades are eliminated, and the Battlehawks and Brahmas game, the number 1 seed's likely going to come down to the Week 10 game where they do play each other. This week the Battlehawks play the Arlington Renegades. AJ McCarron will likely be back, but he still likely won't be starting. So it'll probably get some reps. Manny Wilkins is probably going to be the starter here. They should be able to beat the Renegades still. And even if they don't, the Brahmas have to play the Birmingham Stallions. So, that's going to be tough for the Brahmas to win. So I would expect the Brahmas to probably end up losing that game. But that could definitely be a really good, really important game for both teams. Because if the Battlehawks beat the Brahmas the first time they played, but if the Brahmas beat the Battlehawks here the second time they play, and they both end up 7-3, then I don't really know. They're gonna have to do some other tiebreaker thing, but probably whoever wins that game, that Week 10 game, is going to be the number 1 seed. And this week still kind of has a lot of play into that because I believe, obviously if one of these teams loses and one of the team wins this week, then they basically, all they got to do is win next week, and then they're the 1 seed. So, yeah, going to be a fun last couple weeks here for the XFL conference there. The Stallions and the USFL, the 1 seed. Panthers, a 2 seed. Showboats and Roughnecks, 3 and 4, both eliminated from the playoffs. I believe the Panthers could still technically be the number 1 seed. I think they play the Stallions in Week 10. Not 100% sure on that. So I think if they both go 8-2, Panthers are going to have to, do a lot of something in the tiebreaker because they did lose to the Stallions the first time, of course. So I don't know what exactly the next tiebreaker would be after head-to-head, but I would assume that Birmingham would probably have that tiebreaker won. So I think Birmingham's basically locked up that number 1 spot. Looking at our quarterback power rankings here, I got AJ Martinez 1, AJ McCarron 2, Louis Perez 3, Garbers 4, Teamu 5, Perry 6, Sinnott 7, Corral 8, Etling 9, Perkins 10, Cookus 11, Dormady 12, Troy Williams 13, Gorentano 14, Scott 15, Josh Love 16, Manny Wilkins 17, Jalen McClendon 18, Kevin Hogan 19, Brian Lewerke 20, and Nolan Henderson 21. So I think um these top 9 guys are pretty set in stone here. The next couple of guys, Bryce Perkins, has kind of been on a um, limited time, but he's looked so good in his limited time. I think he's deserving a top 10. Cookus and Dormady and Troy Williams have all been solid. They've had turnover issues. Gorentano's been solid, but he hasn't had any touchdowns yet this year. Lindsey Scott, all these other guys kind of below Gorentano have all been actually pretty solid, but they've all had such limited time. I don't really feel like I can put them much higher, but all of them probably have been playing better than a guy like Quentin Dormady, but just because they've been, had such limited time, I don't really want to put them too high on this list here. Oh yeah, looking at the attendance for this week, Showboats and Panthers had over 9,000, which is a good outing there for Michigan standards for sure. Roughnecks and Stallions had over 10,000, which 10,000 is kind of a low end for Birmingham, but you'll live with that for sure. Defenders and Battlehawks 32,000. It's right about what they've been averaging there in St. Louis. Renegades and Brahmas at about 11,000. Again, 11,000 probably about what San Antonio's been averaging. So nearly 16,000 average here, up almost 6,000 there from last week's average, and a lot of that is again because of St. Louis having the home game. TV viewership here, the Showboats and Panthers had over 673,000 there on Fox. Solid numbers there, I suppose. Not exactly what you want to see, but it's not horrible. Roughnecks and Stallions, only 254K on ESPN2. Second lowest viewing out of any game this season. I don't exactly know why it was on ESPN2, but that's basically the main reason why it was so low. Defenders and Battlehawks, though, kind of makes up for it. They had over 1.1 million, so that's been the highest, I believe, rated game here since the opening weekend. So that's a really good look to see there for St. Louis and DC. Renegades and Brahmas there had over 545,000, so still a little bit lower than what you want to expect. But yeah, the average was 645,000, up a little bit over last week's average, just over about 2,000. But you're right around the same average as last week, so that's not a bad look there. But yeah, that's going to be it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list, and make sure to check out my NBA videos as well.